There we go. Welcome back to Stretching Our Necks. We are Douglas and Kay. And as you can see, we have another guest. This is Rocky. He's going to be here for a little bit, I guess. Nice his scratches. Alright, so we left off with no constitutional amendment is absolute, eh?
According to some people, that's just as if like the changing of other languages or other terms. My world, an amendment was written for a certain method, for certain information to be passed on, that this is the way it was going to be. And nowadays, with the changing of terms to reflect information that was never provided in the beginning, but it now suits basically somebody's opinion on what it should be. We're running into that situation where nothing is absolute, according to.
So you think we're talking, what are you saying, Old Testament to New Testament terms, or are you thinking, third world to first world terms?
No, I'm thinking this word is defined in this manner up until that word's definition has a problem for me and my group of people and or however. So I think now we're going to change the definition of that word so that it suits not me, or it suits me in the way I want it to be projected. So if I'm trying to think of some other more recent.
Biological male into natal would be a very, very good comparison. Male used to be defined as biologically born as, and now natal. Natal has always been used as that term, but now the definition seems to encompass alternate meaning.
Well, I mean, I maybe, but I'm thinking more of if I say if I have a term that typically would have had a left-leaning connotation, but that left-leaning connotation of the actual definition of the word is a troublesome for the left, while they just change the definition so that it means the right or center or right, because they couldn't be. That's not the way they are. It's got to be the way the people that think opposite of me are the way are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go into an actual term nowadays used almost exclusively to determine right from left. Nazi. So you can't actually call anybody a Nazi anymore because I believe the last one was cast out in 2019. So quite literally, there are no more Nazis. But now they have changed the meaning of that term to white supremacist, or it's not so much white supremacist anymore versus damn, I'm losing the chain of thought there, but you know what I mean. So from Nazi to white supremacist, because there are, do you know any Nazis?
No,
neither do I.
And I don't think I've ever in 50 some years have ever met anybody who is a Nazi.
I've never met one at all.
But yes, it becomes a weaponized word to attack somebody without the same beliefs or the same thought process, no matter what that thought process or beliefs are, even though they may not even ever be as close to the type of actions and reactions that the Third Reich, the Nazi Party, had in motion.
Do you know what the Nazi Party stood for? What was their actual acronym?
They're the National Socialist Party.
The National Socialist Party. So, in recent years, whoever said they were a National Socialist?
I haven't heard as many terms as National Socialist, but as of recently, obviously, the biggest term is Democratic Socialist.
Right, that's a big term that's been thrown around the last couple of elections, right?
Right. But even back then, there were different socialist parties in the 1920s, 1930s, Germany, and they were both trying to achieve, which is socialist authoritarianism, but in slightly different paths. But again, they would consider themselves enemies of that particular. This political party is an enemy of this political party, even though they were aiming for the same outcome. It's just their path that they decided to take on how to get there.
We kind of get a lot of that right now with the Green Party and the Democrats. Their agenda's the same, but they definitely fight each other quite frequently for who's right and who's not.
Well, and then also it actually happens within within the Democratic Party itself, of the difference between a Democrat, as we know, and the Democratic Socialist. Both are, well, you would mean the term liberal is not necessarily even correct itself either. That's been a word that's been butchered by and moved more towards being a liberal about something.
Yeah, it kind of means you're generously applying something, yeah?
Right, more liberal, I mean, I'm more open to an idea. When it comes to this going to a buffet, I am more liberal about looking at what I'm about to put on my plate, because this looks good, this looks good, this looks good, compared to, a socialist way, which is you choose, you get this, you get this, you get this.
Right, you're kind of choosing for you.
Where you're being chosen for you. So whether or not liberals are not what I would consider a bad person, or I don't consider them anybody.
I don't consider any of them bad people.
Bad people. I mean, a bad ideology. I don't consider it a bad ideology. What I consider is when you take that and you transform it into really a ideology that is, we're going to make everybody dependent on the government, and that's how we're being liberal, is that the government is going to give you things.
But that's not liberal. That's definitely social.
And that's where the bastardization of that term has come from. I would say when I was younger, I would always have, when it comes to social society, I would consider myself would have been more of a liberal. You live your life there, I live my life here. We're not having to have any issues, because what you're doing with your own life is fine. But see,
now that would be called conservatism.
But now that's considered conservatism, and that's where you've taken a definition of a term and you've switched it around, and so that it is not the same as where it was actually defined. And recently, I mean, even within the last year, dictionaries have fallen under that spell and taken the definition in a dictionary and turned it 180 degrees to be something else.
What offhand? I don't mean to put you on the spot here. Not trying to put you on the spot. I got a couple things in mind that I can think of that Webster's has definitely changed in the last year or so. One of them being the word racism. and the other one being the term male, they have definitely changed the meanings in their own dictionary on what those two things spell out and how you achieve them. What can you think of offhand that literally defines that?
I would say that under my understanding would have been the term fascism, where it moved from a left ideology to being defined now as a right ideology.
Right, because fascism has never been associated with conservatism, ever.
Correct.
Before. But over the last, I'd say, decade, well, really, maybe more, since Bush, you can definitely make that comparison between fascism and conservatism because, well, who's been projecting that idea? I can answer that. I don't need you to answer that. I don't want to put you on the spot. But the mainstream media, I mean, take any one of your big 7 channels and you're going to get somebody calling somebody a fascist because they don't like what they plan to do, or a racist, or communist, which I never thought in a million years conservatism would be called or compared to communism. We don't much care what you do with your life. Stop trying to influence mine. That's kind of more libertarian than conservatism. Conservatism is, I don't want you to take my money, and I certainly don't want you to spend my money freely if you do plan to take it, and I would much rather you don't spend any of my money and save for a rainy day, as to where libertarianism is, again, these are vague breakdowns of what each one are. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. But libertarian would be more, and stay the hell out of my business. I'm not going to be in your business, right? You'd go do you, and you leave me. So I lean more that way, libertarian, than I do conservatism. But I don't think that you can really draw a fascist opinion about either of those things. I know there's left libertarian, and I know there's right libertarian. I know there's centrist, and I know that you can draw comparisons on each, but none of them comparisons are going to be to fascism or communism or authoritarianism. Nobody wants that in either of them parties. So how have they switched that definition to fit that narrative?
Overall, where is the individual who decided to make that decision? Let's say with the dictionary, what part of the meaning did they go? Well, today we're going to change some definitions around. You wonder about that. I wonder about what those meetings are like, and is anybody there in that group going, no, we can't change that. This is the term, the dictionary. This is the definition has been there for 100 years. Why are we, changing that definition of that? And it probably is easier to find a different term to describe that, or a proper term to describe that, rather than, modifying what in a 180-degree modification of any definition. And when it comes to, when it really comes down to, definition of male, female type of a deal, best thing I ever heard was when an archaeologist digs your body up in 100 years, they're not going to they're going to define you as it's either a male body or a female body. Archaeology doesn't care about identity politics.
Which would lead into definitely the best comparison I ever had was, do you really want to milk a bull?
Well,
no, the answer's no. There's no well in that. The answer is definitely no. You can't make butter out of that cream.
It just depends on whether or not that bull has decided to identify itself as a whether or not it's decided to defend itself as a
Rocky.
as a cow.
All right, so yeah, that is a big factor in today's society, right? What you identify as, and you know what? I really, truly don't care what people want. You know, there's this big thing now. You have to, in schools, you have to address people by their appropriate identifiers, and I don't really much care, dude. Whatever you want to do is what you want to do. I don't have an issue with it. I don't really care what you want to call yourself. I don't really care what you identify. You want to dress up as a unicorn and go to school and say, hey, you need to call me by my little pony name, go right ahead and do it. I don't much care. But, you know, it's not the issue. The issue is they are forcing others to do the same damn thing. So if my sons decided that they wanted to go to school and be friends with this person that now wants to be My Little Pony, my sons now have to call them by their My Little Pony name or face discipline. That's a huge problem. They can't. How do you distinguish between that right? You have a right as an American to kind of do a lot. You can get away with or choose to be a lot because you are an American. You have freedoms in this country that you just can't get anywhere else. You go to Iraq and you ask them, oh, hey, I'm going to dress in a pony suit and you need to call me Princess Pink Flower. But you're a gay man. I don't think the Iraq government is going to allow that. Well, I know they're not going to allow that, but...
Well, again, of course, well, in that case, if you're going to do it, you shut that down. Then, according to Biden, it's different culture and different norms. So, you know, they get to be allowed to call what they, you know...
All right, fair enough. Whole another country, whole another different system. I understand that. I don't have an argument with that.
But is it proper because... You know, by doing so, you actually are really just harming another human being.
Well, absolutely. That's kind of where I was going with this. But again, the point isn't that they can't do that in Iraq. The point is they have the freedom to do that here.
Yeah.
That's the main point. The main point is you may not be, and I'm not trying to judge Iraq and say Iraq shouldn't allow this or should allow this. I'm saying that you can't do this in that country. So you need to really appreciate and understand what you actually have here. Why are you trying to change these things? Why are you trying to structure something that's ultimately going to erase your existence? Right now, you have the freedom to do that. Why are you trying to amend? One of the big things that we led off with was no constitutional amendment is absolute. That was our current vice president, former vice president, Joe Biden, saying that. So if no constitutional amendment is absolute, we're going to start losing freedoms. We're going to start losing rights. And that little furry dude that wants to be those things may not necessarily be able to be those things anymore. Again, I don't have an opinion either way. What you do in your own house is your business. It's not my business. I don't care. What goes on in my house is my business. So you're more than entitled to have those things. But I think they're unintentionally hitting points that are going to be used against them in the future. And they don't quite see that far ahead.
Well, that is true. That is true. What is good for me now may not necessarily be good for me later.
Right. Huge point. So just to back into that entire thing, if no constitutional amendment is absolute, how do we define absolute? Which supports all the other contradiction of definitions and the changing of definitions and the meaning of definitions. We actually have a system in this country to go in depth on finding the meaning of definition, especially related to our Constitution. So if you want to actually say the word the phrase no constitutional amendment is absolute, we have a system in place to go ahead and say yes or no, right?
Well, yeah, we do. Of course, amendment to change. obviously to make changes to the amendment, or it takes a lot more than just a bunch of people talking heads in Washington saying, well, we're going to change it. There's many more. Obviously, there's 380 million people involved in that. In comparison to, 500 in DC.
All right, what do you say we table that for now, because we have some delicious looking meat in front of us that needs to go on the grill. And we're going to go ahead and stop this segment and go right into the next segment, which is not just commentary, but actual grilling. What is more American than putting meat on grills?
Nowadays, it's putting impossible meat on grills.
Really wish you would have ended with that, but that's where we're at, and hit that button.